All right, everyone, I'm happy to announce it is now the 10th anniversary of my arrival on YouTube. That's right, my first channel was actually created on November 1st, 2007. A lot of people, I think, won't have realized that. I did talk about it on Twitter several times and spoke of it in a couple videos. But, it's hit and miss as to whether you get notified of anything that I happen to be doing. Content creators are having this problem net-wide at this point. So I just figured I'd make a video reflecting upon the last decade. And also, by the way, onward to another decade, like, I'm not going anywhere. Some people, they're like, well, yeah, but I had a change of life. I'm going to go off and do something else now. So I'm just going to, or they just abandon everyone that's like their fan, and they don't even give them a reason sometimes. I think that that's shitty usually, like the latter. The former is understandable, but you could at least keep like everything alive and occasionally make content. Like, there's no reason to totally like abandon ship, especially if you're involved in social activism or you're analyzing stuff. Like, you built up a substantial audience. Why would you want to leave that behind? If only for fiscal reasons. Some people are in it for the money. Other people are in it to be notorious. Other people, like myself, I actually give a damn. That's the reason that I do this. Not saying, of course, that the amount of donations that I get isn't a compelling reason to keep doing it. And to make more content, because honestly, obviously it is. But I thought it was important to reflect on the last 10 years. First, in memoriam, for those that have been left behind, we've got people like Sean John, Dogmy, and some of the other trolls that very, very early on sort of gravitated towards my work for some unknown reason. I'm not exactly sure why, because I can remember the first drama I ever experienced on YouTube was actually the fight between sort of Lucindio666 and some of his satanic fans, and Blue Fire Witch and a bunch of Wiccans. Like, the Satanists would call them fluff bunnies, and they would say, well, the Satanists don't understand academic paganism. And it was really, really funny because at the time, they were fighting with each other and attacking one another's accounts and rating their videos with comments and stuff. And this is back when YouTube was totally different. For those of you who have joined recently, and by recent I mean post 2012 or so, the last half decade, YouTube before then was totally, totally different. It looked different. It functioned differently. You could actually make what was called a video response and post it to another person's video. A good way to get extra views used to be to post a video response to a popular video on a similar topic. I did this with my entheogens, honestly, and some people had it set to where it would automatically accept video responses. Some people had it set they had to manually do so. So the idea was you'd find a popular video that's roughly the same topic as you were speaking of, that would automatically accept, and then you would post it there. And if it didn't automatically post, you'd rescind it and then find a different video to put it on from a different user. I can remember those good old days, but they were also the bad old days. And I've spoken of this before too. You gotta understand, the censorship we're seeing on YouTube with Adpocalypse and going after so-called offensive content, it's just a changing form of censorship. It's no more excessive than it was before. Before, when I first got to YouTube, it was anything that was slightly gory. I mean, literally anything. It didn't have to be combat footage or offensive in the political sense. Literally anything that was, posting a video of your paper cup bleeding a little bit would have been potentially flaggable. Any sort of romantic content that went beyond the PG-13 would be potentially bannable. Abusive titles in the sense of even a grindcore song or black metal potentially could be flaggable. Any sort of drug reference, even if you were just talking about drugs, was flaggable. I can remember very early on, many years ago, on this channel, when I had the entheogen, the trip reports up. The Datra trip report and several others got set to restricted. Somebody had attempted a flagging raid on the entheogenic content. That was one of the first reasons I took it down. Not only was I not feeling it so much, because, I was post-OD at the time, I think it was a year later, and I'm like, well, do I really want to talk about these subjects? It might cause somebody to try one of them, and that's not really, I'm just giving people educational content because I want them to know how to use them properly so they don't, fuck themselves up like I messed myself up for a while. But I ended up taking them down, but part of that was because somebody clearly had conducted a flagging raid. Videos that had not been restricted were set to restricted mode thereafter. And you used to be, even a couple of years ago, you could see the differentiation. I think YouTube removed that before it imposed its mass censorship today, because 99% of your videos would have that little yellow triangle there saying, yeah, it's in 18 plus mode, and it would start to, I think, shock people if they realized how much of their content actually was in restricted mode. No, I'm not talking about limited state. That's more new. That's a dystopian feature. But YouTube, generally speaking, has improved. Like, if you remember YouTube around 2007, 2008, what was it like? Massive buffering times. The way it was structured was a bit more confusing. There were unavoidable ads, although they were banner ads instead of the kind that ran on videos. The site was generally more empty also. If you looked up a lot of topics, you wouldn't find much on them. Even in Theogens, there were only a half a dozen or so people that took the topic seriously enough to have a significant amount of content. Now it's hundreds of people. When I was doing that, I was one of maybe a half a dozen people who had any substantial number of videos on the topic. I think, what's her name, NeuroSoup, and a few others were making a lot of content. Other than that, now there wasn't a whole lot there for people. And that's important educational material, I think. Documentaries, though, one thing that was better, I will say this, one thing that YouTube now lacks that it had before is a hell of a lot of documentaries and movie footage. And I don't mean little clips of movies, I mean full-length feature films. YouTube now offers them for money, and so they kick the material off in any other form. Including some stuff that's actually copyright-free, like some random person just happens to claim the copyright to some obscure old movie, and YouTube takes it seriously, and the uploader's like, well, you know, I don't have any reasonable assurance. It's not the actual copyright holder, like I'm not an expert in filmographies, so I'm just going to let it stand and take it down. That, I'm sure, happens quite a bit. But the bad old days, the dark age of copyright stuff, was like 2009 to maybe 2011. That period of time took so many channels down you wouldn't believe it. DMCA complaints were rife because at the time, if you filed a DMCA complaint against somebody, it would get the content taken down. There was no real appeals process unless the person responded in writing, I believe. There was no way to directly contact YouTube like there is now for major content creators. People with over 100,000 subscribers and or a branded account can now contact YouTube staff directly. It's very easy to do so. I can email YouTube staff directly. I don't have to wait. I don't have to go through AI to do that. You couldn't do that before. It didn't matter how many subs you had. There were channels that were way, way more massive than like my channel is now. It get taken down. They would never get it reestablished because there was no way for them to contact YouTube. And it was terrible because all a group of people had to do was decide you wanted to target somebody and raid them with flags. And probably you managed to finagle your way into getting their account removed. And during that period, it was like civil war on YouTube. Accounts were deleted as quickly as they were created. YouTube realized there was a problem and very quickly put a stop to it, but it took a while. It was a difficult time. So YouTube now is better than it was for the most part. I would say YouTube peaked a couple of years ago. Like we're talking 2015 through 2016, YouTube peaks in usability, stability, and everything else. It's declining a little bit now because of the limited state bullshit. It's declining a little bit because of the adpocalypse bullshit, because a lot of creators, they're starting to make different types of content. They're dumbing it down. Now they're taking the pro ad-friendly approach as opposed to the, hey, screw your censorship, I'm going to crowdfund approach. They should do the latter. That's been my suggestion because you trust me, doesn't matter. If you make it ad-friendly, at some point they'll just change the definition of what ad-friendly means. Because they've done this twice before now, haven't they? In fact, they've done it 4 or 5 times over the years, but a lot of people, they're more new. They don't recognize that. They don't realize it. But I'm very glad to have been a part of YouTube for 10 years now. I'm now no longer just a YouTuber as I would originally have liked to be. All I wanted to do was be a YouTuber. I didn't want to have a presence on any other site. That includes Facebook. Facebook can suck my ass as far as I'm concerned. I don't care about Facebook. The only reason I even have one is to administer the group page that I manage based on my YouTube content. I wouldn't have any of these other site presences if it weren't for the fact that notifications don't work and I no longer have a reasonable expectation that YouTube is going to leave my content alone and not suddenly kick me off the platform randomly because somebody decided to flag something. If that weren't the case, if YouTube were still as stable as it was last year, no, I wouldn't have an account on any of these other sites. I don't have any specific loyalty to alt tech except that YouTube is now more censored. It's begun to become more censored anyway. And I'm uncomfortable with it. Well, I want my material to still be there for people to peruse on other sites. I don't want it to just be on one site where it might suddenly get mass deleted with no ability for me to get it back because it was some staffer that decided my content was offensive in some way. So I would say this. Overall, I'm still 99% happy with YouTube. There's just that nagging 1%, and I don't like to take chances. So why would I want to have a single site platform? It just wouldn't make any sense. And I'd say this, I'm going to keep making more content. I've already announced the Entheogen series will be coming back over the coming months. I'm working on many, many more literary projects. Right now I'm working on the Ars Goetia. I'm actually working on a text that I technically should have been doing very early on because it's one of the most important occult texts of all. And I never quite got around to it, and I don't exactly remember why I chose not to. I'm going to be redoing all the original editions, like the really old ones. They have to be reformatted a bit. The Ars Notoria, the Grand Grimoire, the Black Pullet, certainly. All of these will be redone, and I'm hoping to bring a better literary experience to people. That ties right into my YouTube work, because every time I release something and gets announced on YouTube, I'm going to be re-announcing all those original texts as they come online. There's a lot of work to be done. The next 10 years will be fun, and I'm almost 30. You got to realize that. So spend another decade of my life on YouTube, but it's a great time. Why wouldn't I want to? It's entertaining. So hopefully you're entertained by this channel. Hopefully you find it educational. And don't worry. I mean, even like if I did for some random chance, and I don't think this will happen, but if I got kicked off YouTube, don't you think I'd just make another fucking channel anyway? Of course I would. And I'd share it out everywhere else, and pretty soon it'd have 20, 30,000 people on it. Yeah, that's fine. I'm not going butt fuck anywhere. That's about all. Peace out.